From the day my daughter was born, Karen said she was broken. She stood outside our hospital room with that same smug smile she wore to every HOA meeting, clutching her little clipboard like a crown. "Poor thing," she whispered to the nurses. "Maybe some kids just aren't meant to run." Those words never left me. For 12 years, Karen made sure no one forgot my daughter's wheelchair. She complained when we built a ramp, said it ruined the curb. "Appeal!" She fined us for non-standard medical equipment, then laughed. When the HOA meetings echoed with my pleas for mercy, sympathy doesn't pay dues, she'd say. But what she didn't know, what she never imagined, was that the girl she mocked wasn't cursed. She was targeted, and the boy who'd uncover the truth was someone she never even saw. He was poor, a maintenance worker's son, the kind of boy people ignored until they needed their sprinklers fixed. But one summer afternoon, while cleaning the community records room, he found something that made his hands shake. A document with Karen's signature. Dated the day my daughter was born. It wasn't a simple file. It was a cover-up. Something about that night in the hospital. Something about why my daughter was paralyzed. Had been hidden for 12 years. And when he brought that truth to our door, Karen's empire of fake smiles, perfect lawns, and HOA threats began to crumble. One secret at a time. Because sometimes monsters don't live in shadows. They live across the street, behind perfect hedges, pretending to care. Before all the bitterness, before the fines and whispers, life in Crescent Hill had felt almost gentle. Our house sat at the corner of Maple Grove, the last one on the street. Old but warm, smelling like cinnamon and hope. We didn't have much, but what we had was real. My daughter Lily was born with a spinal cord injury. The doctor said she'd never walk, never run, never live a normal life. But to us, she was perfect. A bundle of laughter wrapped in soft blankets and stubbornness. Claire, my wife, used to say, "She might not move like the rest of the world, but she'll move hearts instead." And she did. Lily's laughter filled our home. She loved music, especially the piano, even though her fingers trembled when she pressed the keys. She loved watching sunlight hit the curtains, calling it liquid gold. Her favorite thing was sitting on the porch, feeling the breeze on her face while we read stories aloud. Then came Karen Hensley, new to the neighborhood, new HOA president, and the self-proclaimed protector of Crescent Hill standards. At first, she played the part, sweet smiles, pies at meetings, fake concern for everyone's well-being. But behind that kindness was something colder, the kind of pride that feeds on weakness. The first complaint came when we built Lily's wheelchair ramp. "Unapproved structure," Karen said, handing me the notice like a gift. "You should have checked the design manual. The board doesn't allow exterior medical modifications." I stared at her, stunned. "It's a ramp. My daughter can't enter her own house without it." Karen's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Rules are rules, Michael. We can't bend them for every situation, every broken child." From then on, she never stopped. She mocked Lily's therapy visits, told neighbors we were milking sympathy, even suggested our unattractive equipment lowered property value. Still, we tried to keep peace. Lily was too pure to hate anyone. When she heard Karen gossiping one afternoon, she just said softly, "Maybe she doesn't know how to be kind yet." Those words crushed me, because even at 12, my daughter was wiser than the woman running the entire neighborhood. We learned to ignore the stares, the letters, the whispers. But as the years passed, I couldn't shake one feeling, that Karen's cruelty wasn't just personal. It was intentional. Like she knew something we didn't. And then, that one summer, the poor boy, the one everyone dismissed, showed up with an envelope that proved I'd been right all along. Inside it was a hospital document. Date, the night Lily was born. Signature, Karen Hensley. And beside it, 2 words that changed everything. Authorization granted. The first time Karen humiliated Lily in public, it wasn't an accident. It was an announcement. It was the Crescent Hill Spring Fair, the HOA's pride and joy. Every year, Karen turned it into her personal stage. Judging baking contests, posing for photos, giving speeches about community excellence. It was supposed to be a family event, but somehow, it always ended with someone in tears, usually whoever didn't fit her perfect mold. That year, Lily had begged to attend. "I want to feel the music," she said, "even if I can't dance." Claire hesitated, but I agreed. "She deserves to be seen," I told her. Not hidden. The park was filled with laughter and sunlight. Balloons shimmered above vendor tents. Kids ran with cotton candy, and a local band played soft acoustic songs. Lily's wheelchair rolled easily over the freshly paved path. She smiled, feeling the vibrations of music through her hands. Then came Karen, immaculate as always. Heels sinking into the grass, clipboard tucked under her arm like scripture. Well, she said, stopping in front of us. "Nice to see you out, Michael. And this must be little Lily." "She's 12 now?" I replied, smiling thinly. Karen tilted her head. "How adorable." "Still in the same situation, I see?" Claire froze. "She was born paralyzed, Karen. That's not a situation." Karen smiled as if she hadn't heard. "Oh, I didn't mean it that way. You know me. I just worry she's not getting the right stimulation. These kinds of kids need special care, not fairs." Lily looked up, confused. "What do you mean, Mrs. Karen?" Karen crouched to her level, lowering her voice just enough for the crowd nearby to still hear. "Sweetheart, this is a place for running and playing. Maybe next year you can help decorate instead of trying to keep up." A few parents gasped quietly. Others looked away. No one spoke. Lily's lips trembled. "I just wanted to hear the music." Karen stood, adjusting her sunglasses. "And isn't that precious?" she said, smiling for the cameras. I wanted to shout to rip that smile off her face, but Lily grabbed my wrist, her tiny hand cold and shaking. "It's okay, Dad," she whispered. "She just doesn't know what broken sounds like." We left the fair early. Lily didn't touch her cotton candy or speak the whole way home. That night I found her at the piano, pressing a single key over and over. The same note, soft and trembling. When I asked why, she said quietly, "Because it doesn't need legs to make music." Karen thought that day was her victory, a show of dominance. But she didn't know that someone else was watching her, recording her cruelty, and quietly piecing together a truth she'd buried 12 years ago. A truth about the night Lily was born. It happened 2 weeks after the fair. On one of those calm, golden evenings when the sky feels too peaceful for the kind of pain it's about to hold. Claire was inside cooking dinner. Lily sat on the porch, humming a song she'd written herself, one about rainbows, sunlight, and people who pretend to be kind. Her laughter had slowly returned after the fair, though quieter, like something fragile learning to live again. I was working on the garden fence when I heard the sound of an engine idling too close. I looked up. Karen's silver SUV stopped right in front of our driveway. She rolled down her window, perfectly coiffed as always. "Michael," she called, "we need to talk about your ramp." I wiped my hands. "Again?" "It's an eyesore," she said sharply. "The board has voted to demand removal. The community is losing aesthetic consistency." My jaw tightened. "Karen, my daughter can't even enter her home without it." She shrugged. "That's not the HOA's problem." Before I could answer, Lily rolled her wheelchair down the porch ramp. "Hi, Mrs. Karen," she said softly. "Do you want to see the flowers I planted?" Karen forced a smile. "Oh, that's sweet, dear. But you shouldn't be outside unsupervised." "I'm fine," Lily said. "I like being out here. The sun feels warm." Karen tilted her head. "Yes, but sometimes the world isn't built for everyone. You understand that, don't you?" Her words sliced through the air. I stepped forward. "Karen, enough!" But it was too late. Lily, startled by the sudden tension, tried to wheel back. Her hand slipped off the rail. The chair jerked. The front wheel caught on a loose board, and before I could reach her, she fell. The sound was small, but it shattered me. The chair toppled, hitting the grass hard. Lily screamed once, then went silent. Claire ran out, her face pale as chalk. I lifted Lily into my arms, her body limp, her breathing shallow. "Call 911!" Claire screamed. Karen just stood there, frozen beside her perfect SUV, her face pale but her lips pressed tight. "Don't just stand there," I yelled. She blinked, then muttered, "I told you that ramp was unsafe. It took everything in me not to lose control." The paramedics arrived minutes later, flashing lights painting our perfect neighborhood in red and blue. As they loaded Lily onto the stretcher, I caught Karen's reflection in the SUV window. For the first time, she looked afraid. But not for Lily. For herself. At the hospital, the doctors rushed her to ICU. Her spine hadn't been damaged further. Thank God. But something strange showed up on the scans. Lesions. Tissue decay they couldn't explain. Was she exposed to any unusual chemicals as an infant? The doctor asked gently. Claire and I exchanged confused looks. "No," I said. "She was born paralyzed." "That's all we were told," the doctor frowned. "Well, whatever caused this, it didn't happen naturally." That night, I found Leo, the poor maintenance boy, waiting in the lobby holding a sealed envelope. His hands trembled as he handed it to me. "I know what happened," he whispered. "It wasn't an accident. It started the night she was born. And Karen was there." The hospital room was silent except for the rhythmic hum of the monitors. Lily lay motionless, her small fingers curled against the blanket. Her skin looked too pale for her age, like she'd been carrying a secret sickness for years that no one had named. The doctors couldn't explain the sudden lesions they found. They called it degenerative cellular trauma, something they'd never seen in a child who'd been paralyzed since birth. "It's as if her body's been fighting something invisible for a long time," one physician murmured. Claire broke down that night, crying into her hands. "She's suffered enough," she whispered. "How much more does she have to survive?" Outside, I could hear neighbors in the hallway, soft murmurs, camera phones, gossip disguised as sympathy. But no one dared come in. No one. Except Leo. He slipped into the room quietly, holding the envelope he'd given me earlier. His eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep. "I think I know why she's sick," he said. I opened the envelope. Inside were faded hospital records, printed, stamped, and signed. My breath caught as I read the header, Willow County General Hospital, Maternity Ward, 12 years ago. Below it, in bold, patient Lily Davis, and beneath that, a signature that froze my blood. Authorized attending. Karen Hensley Clare stared at the page. "She's not a doctor. She was a hospital administrator back then," Leo said quietly. "My mom worked in the same building before she died. She told me about a newborn accident, something involving faulty sterilization fluid in the neonatal unit. They said a valve burst during cleaning, and one of the babies inhaled the fumes. The baby survived, but was left paralyzed." He looked at us with haunted eyes. "That baby was Lily." My knees went weak. "You're saying—" "Yes," Leo cut in. "Karen's company, Hensley Sanitech, supplied that fluid. It wasn't medical grade. It was an industrial solvent she was testing to save costs. When the leak happened, the hospital blamed a nurse, but Karen covered it up. She signed off on it herself, labeled it a genetic defect." Claire gasped, her hand covering her mouth. "Oh my God." "She knew," Leo nodded, "and she's been trying to keep it buried ever since. That's why she's targeted your family. The ramp, the letters, the humiliation. It's not hatred. It's guilt." The room fell silent except for the machines. My mind spun with rage and disbelief. Karen, the woman who'd mocked my daughter for years, had caused her suffering since birth. And instead of remorse, she'd turned her shame into cruelty. I wanted to storm her house that instant, to scream, to break the world in half. But Leo stopped me. "If you confront her now, she'll bury the evidence. We need to expose her, properly. How?" I asked. He opened his backpack and revealed a flash drive. My mom saved a copy of the maintenance logs, chemical orders, test results, and emails between Karen and the hospital director. It's all on here. If we can prove this to the county board, she's finished. Claire's eyes welled with tears. "She doesn't deserve peace. Not after this." Leo's voice trembled. "She will have to face what she did. But not through hate, through truth." Outside the hospital window, I could see Karen's SUV parked across the lot, headlights off. Just sitting there, watching, waiting. She knew we'd found something. The battle lines were drawn, and the next morning, every neighbor who once ignored us would wake to see a war between a family she'd broken and a woman who thought she'd buried her past forever. The next 72 hours felt like drowning with your eyes open. The hospital became a fortress of fear. The doctors stopped answering questions directly. The administrators grew cold, and every time we asked for Lily's medical file, we were told it was under review. That phrase, under review, was just another way of saying we're hiding something. Then came the first sign that Karen had already struck back. When I pulled into the driveway to grab clothes for Claire, I found a bright orange notice stapled to the ramp: HOA infraction. Structural removal required within 48 hours. I laughed, an ugly, broken sound. Even now, with our daughter fighting for her life, Karen was still playing her petty game of control. Except now it wasn't petty. It was war. Claire's hands shook as she tore the notice down. "She's scared," she whispered. "She knows we can expose her." That night, the power in our home went out. The security cameras blinked off. A brick shattered the front window. On it, a single note: "Stop digging or she'll suffer more." Leo was the one who found it. He'd been sleeping on the couch, determined to keep watch. "She's getting desperate," he said quietly. "That means we're close, but the stress was killing us." Claire hadn't eaten in days. I hadn't slept. And Lily, she was slipping fast. Her fever spiked, her breathing labored. When the nurses rushed her into the ICU, I fell to my knees in the hallway. The sound of the alarms, the shouting, the doors slamming, it was all too much. "I can't lose her," I whispered to no one. Leo knelt beside me. "You won't," he said, voice firm despite his own tears. "You told me once that Karen's power came from fear. Then stop being afraid. Fight her with what she can't control: truth." Inside the ICU, Lily's pulse steadied for a moment. Claire sat beside her, brushing hair from her forehead. "Mom," Lily murmured weakly, "is Mrs. Karen still angry at me?" Claire's voice cracked. "She's just lost, sweetheart." "Then maybe she needs light," Lily whispered. "Even dark people can't live without light." That single line ripped through me. Our little girl, paralyzed, poisoned, nearly dying, was still the only one in this story who understood grace. Outside, thunder rolled. The storm had begun. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the dark anymore, because the truth was ready to rise, and it had Leo's fingerprints all over it. Leo refused to let Karen's threats bury the truth. "If she wants darkness," he said, "then let's show her what light really looks like." We turned our grief into purpose. Lily's words, "Even dark people need light," became our compass. Every sleepless night, Leo dug through the digital wreckage Karen had tried to erase. Old email backups, archived invoices, hospital memos buried in unlabeled folders. His small apartment looked like a war room, walls lined with sticky notes. Printer paper and string connecting one lie to the next. 3 nights in, he found it. A series of internal emails between Karen Hensley and the hospital's facilities chief. "Dispose of remaining sample quietly. No public report. I'll handle the parents. Patient survival confirmed. Permanent paralysis likely. Legal risk low if cause listed as congenital defect." The timestamp? 2 days after Lily's birth. Claire's hands trembled as she read the screen. She watched our baby suffer and thought about legal risk. Leo clenched his jaw. "We're not going to her door this time. We're going to the world." He copied every document, every log entry, and every bank transfer showing how Karen funneled money into a community improvement fund, which was just hush money to the hospital board. When the printer spat out the last page, Leo said quietly, "This ends at the HOA meeting." "In front of everyone she ever fooled," Claire hesitated. "She'll destroy us if this goes wrong." "She already did," I said. Now it's her turn to face what she built. The next few days blurred into preparation, collecting evidence, printing backups, recording testimony. Even the doctor who'd treated Lily as a newborn agreed to speak. "I've carried this guilt for 12 years, he told us. "It's time." But as the night of the meeting drew near, Lily grew weaker. Her temperature rose. The doctors said her organs were beginning to fail. If she has anything left to say, they warned, say it soon. When I told her about the plan, she smiled faintly. You'll tell them the truth, right? Yes, I whispered. All of it. Then don't cry, Dad, she said softly. Even if I don't make it. Truth doesn't need me to walk. It can walk on its own. I couldn't answer, because she was right. That night, as the rain poured outside the hospital window, Leo packed the flash drive into his jacket. Tomorrow, he said, the entire neighborhood will finally see what she did, and what your daughter stood for. And somewhere across town, under the glow of her perfect chandelier, Karen rehearsed her speech for the next morning's HOA meeting, unaware that every word she planned to say would be her own undoing. The morning of the HOA meeting felt like the air itself was holding its breath. Clouds pressed low over Crescent Hill, thunder rumbling like judgment waiting to fall. Karen's mansion, the crown jewel of her false kingdom, glittered with white banners and gold lettering. Crescent Hill, a legacy of excellence. Inside, the meeting hall buzzed with anticipation. Board members, local press, and homeowners all gathered under crystal chandeliers, whispering about rumors of corruption. Karen had promised a major announcement to restore her reputation. None of them knew the announcement would come, just not from her. At the back of the room, Leo set up the small projector he'd borrowed from the hospital's media room. His hands were steady, his face unreadable. Every file, every document, every signature was ready to display. The flash drive, the key to everything, hung from a chain around his neck. Claire and I sat near the entrance, pale but determined. Lily couldn't be there. She was too weak. But before we left, she had whispered, "Make her listen." Those 3 words kept replaying in my head. Karen strutted to the podium, flawless in her pastel suit, the same cold smile she'd worn since the day Lily was born. "Welcome, dear neighbors," she began, her voice ringing sweetly through the microphone. "I know there have been hurtful accusations lately, unfounded claims from individuals who simply can't accept responsibility for their own misfortunes." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed. "And to those who've chosen to spread these lies," she continued, "I forgive you. It must be difficult raising a child with challenges. But projecting blame doesn't heal anyone." Leo stepped forward before she could finish. "You're right, Ms. Hensley," he said calmly. "Blame doesn't heal, but truth does." Karen turned sharply. "Excuse me?" He lifted his phone, connecting it to the projector. "You said you wanted transparency, didn't you? Let's give everyone some." The lights dimmed. The projector flickered to life, casting blue light across the marble walls. First came the hospital memo, her signature, crisp and undeniable. Then the emails, "Dispose of remaining sample quietly. Legal risk minimal if cause recorded as congenital." Gasps echoed through the hall. Cameras turned toward her. Karen's voice wavered. This is fabricated." Leo didn't flinch. "Then why is your company's payment ledger showing $250,000 transferred to the hospital director's personal account 3 days later?" The screen changed again. Transaction receipts, account numbers, her initials. People stood up. The board president shouted for order. Reporters rushed forward. Karen's mask cracked. "You don't understand," she cried. "I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt." Leo's voice was quiet but merciless. "Tell that to the little girl you've mocked for 12 years. Her knees buckled." The crowd erupted, and just as security moved to escort Leo out, another sound filled the room. Faint but clear from the speakers. "Mrs. Karen," a small voice said. "I forgive you." It was Lily's voice, broadcast from Leo's phone, her message recorded the night before when she'd known she might not wake up. Karen froze, tears streaking her perfect makeup. What is this?" Leo looked at her. "That's the girl you broke, forgiving you before the world does." And with that, Karen's kingdom collapsed. The HOA hall had never seen chaos like this. The chandeliers trembled with the roar of outrage, gasps, and the flash of cameras. The polished marble that Karen once used to mirror her own perfection now reflected nothing but her downfall. The crowd's disbelief was instant and electric. Homeowners who once worshipped her orderliness now turned into a sea of furious faces. Mothers clutched their children closer, fathers whispered curses, and even her loyal board members stepped away as if her guilt were contagious. On the massive screen behind her, the evidence cycled mercilessly. Hospital memos, chemical order forms, her unmistakable signature, and that one sentence that no one could unhear: dispose of remaining sample quietly. No public report. I'll handle the parents. Each word echoed through the speakers like a verdict. Karen staggered back from the podium, gripping its edge for balance. This isn't real," she shouted. "He's lying. You're all being manipulated by a janitor's son." Leo stepped forward, his voice calm but unyielding. "You can insult me all you want, but you can't insult proof." He clicked to the next slide. The ledger appeared, showing $250,000 wired directly from Hensley Sanitex Corp. To the hospital's General Improvement Fund. But under the ledger was the damning note from the hospital director. "Payment received. Case closed. No report filed." The silence that followed felt like the whole world holding its breath. Karen's composure cracked. She slammed her manicured hand on the podium. "You don't understand," she cried. "That solvent was never meant for patients. It was a trial product. Someone made a mistake." A voice rose from the crowd, a gray-haired doctor standing near the back, trembling as he spoke. "You mean you made a mistake, Karen?" She turned sharply. "Who are you?" "I was there," he said. "I was on duty the night the chemical leak happened. I remember the alarms, the fumes, the crying parents. I remember you telling the board to keep quiet or lose their jobs." Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He continued, voice breaking. "And I remember the nurse you blamed. She lost everything. She's been living with that guilt for 12 years. You let her take the fall while that baby, that little girl, grew up paralyzed." The crowd gasped again. Someone whispered, "That poor child." Karen's hands began to shake. Her perfect posture wilted. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I thought it was contained." Leo's voice turned sharp. "You knew. You were there when the nurse screamed for help. You just didn't care, because fixing it would have cost you money." Reporters swarmed the front of the room. Cameras pointed at Karen like weapons of light. Questions flew. Did you falsify the records? Were you aware of the exposure? Did you pay off the hospital? And then the final nail struck. Lily's recording. Her voice filled the speakers, gentle and pure, echoing through the hall like a hymn. "Mrs. Karen, I don't hate you. I just wish you could see the way light feels when you stop hiding from it." The room fell silent. Even the reporters stopped typing. Karen's eyes filled with tears. Not from remorse yet, but from shock. She knows?" Leo nodded. "She's known pain every day of her life. And she still forgives you." Karen sank to her knees, trembling. "What kind of child forgives something like that?" "A child stronger than you'll ever be," Claire said from the audience, standing now. Her voice shook, but her eyes burned with steady fury. "You took her body. You tried to take her dignity, but you can't take her soul." The police officers entered then, badges glinting in the light. One of them approached Karen, hand resting on his holster. "Karen Hensley, you're under arrest for corporate negligence, falsification of medical records, and obstruction of justice." Karen didn't resist. She just looked around at the faces she once ruled. Not one of them met her eyes. As she was led out of the hall, flashbulbs exploded like lightning. She turned once toward Leo. "You think this makes you a hero?" Leo met her gaze, calm and unwavering. "No, it just makes you human again." The doors closed behind her, muffling the crowd's noise. The silence she left behind was deafening, a silence full of realization, relief, and grief. People turned to us, some crying, some whispering apologies. The same neighbors who once crossed the street to avoid Lily's chair now reached out to hold our hands. For the first time, the community wasn't bound by rules or fear, but by truth. Leo stepped to the microphone one last time. For 12 years, this neighborhood believed kindness was weakness. But tonight, we learned that compassion is the only thing that survives lies. He turned off the projector. The lights came back on. Outside, the storm that had raged all day finally broke, and sunlight spilled through the clouds, golden and alive. The next morning, Crescent Hill woke up to headlines that shattered its illusion of perfection. HOA president arrested in cover-up that paralyzed newborn. Chemical giant under investigation. CEO faces life-changing charges. Karen's empire of white fences and glossy newsletters had burned overnight. The same neighbors who once cowered before her now tore down her community standards posters. The HOA offices were sealed with police tape. For the first time in years, our street felt quiet. Not peaceful, but cleansed. At the hospital, the quiet was heavier. Lily had slipped into a semi-conscious state. Machines breathed for her, heart monitor blinking slow and steady like a fading star. Claire sat beside her, whispering old bedtime songs through tears. "Do you think she knows it's over?" Claire asked me, voice trembling. I looked at our daughter's small hand, limp in mine. She always knew the truth before anyone else did. Leo stood by the window, exhaustion carved deep into his face. He'd given everything, his time, his safety, his future, to expose the woman who had destroyed ours. But there was no victory in his eyes, only sorrow. "The truth's out," he said. "Now it's up to her to find peace." 2 weeks later, Karen's trial began. The courtroom overflowed with reporters. Her lawyer tried to paint her as a devastated mother whose grief had clouded her judgment. It almost worked, until the prosecution played the recordings. Her voice ordering the chemical disposal. Her signature approving the falsified report. The hush that followed was suffocating. Karen's face broke for the first time. Not into anger, but into something smaller, human. The judge's tone was sharp, measured. "Mrs. Hensley, your negligence destroyed lives, including that of an innocent child. You had power, and you used it to protect yourself instead of the truth." He paused. "You will serve 10 years in federal custody, and your company will be dismantled under state supervision. Every dollar of your personal assets will be allocated to medical trusts for victims of your negligence." The gavel struck. Karen flinched like the sound itself had weight. Reporters shouted questions as officers took her by the arms. She didn't answer. She didn't even look at them. Her eyes found us instead, me, Claire, and Leo, sitting quietly in the front row. For a long moment, she stared at us with tears pooling in her eyes. Then, breaking down completely, she whispered, "I didn't mean for her to suffer. I didn't know what to feel, rage, pity, or relief." But Claire's voice cut through the stillness. "Meaning doesn't undo doing." Karen lowered her head, sobbing as she was led away. Outside the courthouse, sunlight poured over the steps, photographers flashing as if to capture redemption itself. Leo spoke briefly to the reporters. This was never about revenge. It was about a child who deserved truth. He refused interviews after that. The world didn't need his face. It already had his courage. That night, something unexplainable happened at the hospital. Lily's heart monitor beeped faster. Her pulse strengthened. The doctors rushed in, baffled as new scans showed her damaged neural tissue beginning to regenerate. "We don't understand it," the chief neurologist said, blinking at the screen. "It's like her body's finally remembering how to heal." When she opened her eyes, the first thing she asked was, "Did she say sorry?" Claire nodded through tears. "She did," Lily smiled faintly. "Then maybe she can see again, too." We held her hand for hours, watching her fingers twitch. Tiny movements that shouldn't have been possible. But she was alive, her spirit burning stronger than any diagnosis. A month later, Crescent Hill gathered in the park, the same one where Karen once humiliated Lily. The new HOA banner fluttered in the wind. Kindness is the only standard. Neighbors brought flowers, food, and laughter. For the first time, it felt like a real community. Leo stood beside us, his arm wrapped in a makeshift cast from exhaustion and stress, smiling shyly at the applause. Claire took the stage and spoke softly. "We built our fences to keep things perfect. Maybe it's time we build bridges instead." Then she turned to Lily. "Do you want to say something, sweetheart?" Lily rolled her wheelchair forward, microphone trembling in her small hands. Her voice was fragile but clear. Mrs. Karen hurt me because she was scared. But scared people can change too. I don't want to live in a world where we only punish. I want one where we heal. The crowd stood in silence, then erupted in applause that echoed across Crescent Hill. And for the first time since her birth, the sound didn't make her flinch. She lifted her face to the light and whispered, "I can feel it, Mom. I can feel the world getting better. Because justice isn't just about making someone pay. It's about making everyone else see. And when one blind girl helped a blinded world open its eyes, Crescent Hill finally became what it was always meant to be. A place where truth, love, and light could live without fear." Months passed, and the world slowly learned to breathe again. The story of Crescent Hill's fallen queen and the girl she had wronged spread far beyond our quiet neighborhood. News outlets called it the HOA redemption case. But for us, it wasn't a headline. It was the end of a nightmare and the beginning of something new. Karen's estate was auctioned off, her empire dismantled piece by piece. The funds went into the Lily Hope Foundation, a medical grant for children living with paralysis and rare nerve disorders. Her name disappeared from every company wall, every board list, every HOA newsletter. But her actions, and their consequences, became a cautionary story told in corporate ethics classes across the state. Meanwhile, our house, once marked by fines and ridicule, became a place people visited for hope. The ramp Karen once called an eyesore was now painted in rainbow colors by the neighborhood kids. Each plank carried a word: faith, truth, courage, kindness, forgiveness. Lily's health stabilized miraculously. The doctors couldn't explain it. "There's no medical logic," one neurologist said in disbelief. "Her neurons have reconnected beyond what's physically expected. It's like her body remembered how to fight." She began therapy again, smiling through every ache, every fall, every victory. Each day she could lift her arms a little higher, turn her head a little faster, sit up a little longer. Watching her learn to move again was like watching sunrise after years of storm. Leo never left her side. He turned down scholarships, choosing instead to work for the foundation as a youth mentor. When reporters asked him why, he said, "Because Lily's story isn't mine to walk away from. It's mine to help continue." Claire found peace in rebuilding the community. She organized support groups for mothers of disabled children, the same ones who used to feel invisible. Neighbors who once whispered pity now volunteered to help build accessibility ramps in nearby towns. Even the most prideful residents of Crescent Hill learned humility. One day, we received an envelope in the mail. No return address, just a folded piece of paper and a key, the key to the old HOA office, the letter read. "It's yours now. Turn that room into something better than what I made it. K." Claire stared at the letter for a long time before smiling softly. Even darkness can leave behind light. We converted that office into a small rehabilitation studio, a place where children could learn movement, therapy, and independence without shame. On the front door, Lily painted a small quote in raised letters. "Where they broke me," I began. Every afternoon, she'd sit by the window, listening to the laughter of other kids learning to roll, move, and stand. Her joy was quiet, but it filled every corner. As the seasons changed, Crescent Hill became unrecognizable, not because of its houses, but because of its heart. People who once hid behind fences now brought meals to one another. Strangers waved instead of judging. The word community finally meant what it was supposed to, and every evening, as the sun dipped low and the wind moved through the trees, Lily would say the same words that once broke me, but now healed me. "I can't walk yet, Dad, but I'm standing." A year later, Crescent Hill didn't look like a neighborhood anymore. It looked like a living story. The old iron HOA gates that once kept people out were replaced with an open archway that read, "Welcome to Lily's Hill, where truth builds homes." Every brick, every ramp, every garden path carried a piece of what we'd all survived. The old HOA office had become the beating heart of the community. Where Karen once held her rule books and fines, children now learned to paint, read, and dream. The walls were covered with art from local kids, handprints, sunbursts, and words written in Braille. Above the main entrance, in gold letters, were Lily's words, "You don't have to walk to move people." The Lily Hope Foundation expanded beyond Crescent Hill. Hospitals across the state reached out for guidance, inspired by how our small town had turned tragedy into progress. Donations poured in. Families with disabled children began visiting every week, seeking strength from the girl who refused to give up. Lily was 14 now, still using her chair, still fragile, but alive with the kind of brightness no medicine could explain. She spent her afternoons teaching younger kids how to read Braille, her laughter echoing down the same streets that once echoed with gossip. Leo, now officially part of the foundation's board, had become something of a local legend, the boy who uncovered the truth. But he never saw himself that way. "I just helped her find the light she already had," he said whenever people thanked him. Their friendship was the kind that books are written about, quiet, unshakable, built on truth and shared pain. He pushed her chair through the community garden every evening, and she'd point her face toward the sunset, describing the warmth, the scent of the flowers, the way the world felt, and sometimes, when she thought no one was listening, she'd whisper softly, "I think I can feel his forgiveness too." Because Karen, the woman who once ruled through cruelty, had been granted parole early after showing signs of repentance. She volunteered at children's rehab centers now, quietly and humbly under a different name. One day she mailed a photo, a group of children learning to walk again, sunlight streaming through the window. On the back, one line, "She helped me see." Claire framed it on Lily's wall. "Everyone gets a second chance when they finally open their eyes," she said. At the next Day of Light celebration, the crowd gathered in the park, hundreds of families. Doctors, neighbors, all standing beneath lanterns glowing gold. Lily spoke last. Her voice trembled but carried through the night. "The truth hurt us once, but now it heals us every day. We don't need perfect streets or perfect people. We just need each other." The audience rose in a standing ovation. As the lights dimmed, Leo leaned over and whispered, "You did it?" "Lily," she smiled toward the stars. "No," she said softly. "We did." And somewhere beyond the applause, the world exhaled, finally seeing that sometimes the smallest girl in the smallest chair can carry the biggest light of all.